Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Morena. Good morning, your worship councillors, members of the Rural Lakes and Titato boards. Morena Koto. Welcome to our Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting today, the 13th of May, 2021. We have our media here with us. Good morning. And members of the public as well, and of course Jeff and our hard-working staff. No mai haramai, welcome to our meeting this morning. We are streaming live, so to those watching from afar, nice to have you with us this morning as well. Please, mobiles turned off and out of sight, and we will be taking, I think we might be moving right on and hopefully taking our break at 11:30 because we've got a session after lunch as well. So we have a karakia this morning. Our opening karakia is by Her Worship. Thank you.
Kia ora. Tūtua mai ronga, tūtua mai I raro, tūtaua mai I roto, tūtaua mai waho, kia tauai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumie, huie, tai kie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll call for apologies, please. I do have one from Mr. Vicini Tule. So could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Wang. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Carried. Any declarations of interest, please? Yes, Your Worship.
I could just indicate that at 10 o'clock I'll be leaving the meeting to go on a Zoom with the Minister Nana Mahuta and fellow mayors of the region about the Three Waters, and then I'll be coming back to the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you. Councillor Kumar.
Something probably not important, but just would like to apologize to everyone that I seem to be calling extraordinary meetings to. I don't know what's happening with my phone. It's been tripping, so I went down to the IT department the other day to sort it out, and so hopefully that's sorted. But yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Kumar. I thought you're dead keen with so many notifications there, so thank you for that. Urgent items? Any urgent items? Nothing. Thank you very much. Confirmation of our minutes. Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting of the 15th of April 2021. Are there any changes, amendments to those meetings? Otherwise I'll call for a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Tapsell. Thank you, Councillor Yates. I'll put that the minutes be confirmed as a true and correct record. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, thank you, carried. We're on to page 12 now. The proposed change of classification of part of Rotorua Cemetery Reserve. Could I please have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Thank you, Mrs. Trumper. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. It's been moved and seconded. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, thank you, carried. Morena Korua. Thank you very much to present the report this morning. Thank you. Rob.
Morena, tēnā koutou. We'll take you through this. It's a reasonably straightforward one, we hope. Apologies from Jocelyn Mackay who can't be here today. But effectively, as hopefully everyone will know, Rotorua Cemetery on Sala Street is a gifted reserve. The image is up there in front of you, unfortunately, on its side. But the situation is that there we go, excellent, thank you. In 1995, that northern section of the cemetery, which was a local purpose reserve, bracket cemetery, was changed to a recreation reserve. That was done before the formation of the Ngāti Whakawe Gifted Reserves Protocol Committee, and it was leased for a recreational activity. In 2018, the tenants sought to change the purpose of that reserve, change the purpose of the activity that they were going to carry out in that reserve, which, with discussions with the Gifted Reserves Committee, it was considered that change would be even further from what the original purpose of the reserve was. That lease didn't have much time left to run, and the intention was, okay, once that lease has actually run out, we would like to return that reserve back to its original purpose. The tenants terminated their lease in 2020, and now we need to go through a Reserves Act process to change that designation from Recreation Reserve back to Local Purpose Cemetery Reserve. It is a Reserves Act process, and Steph can give a very quick rundown of how that works, and then it will be coming back to the committee later on after a number of things have happened.
Thank you. So the Reserves Act sets out the process for changing the classification of a reserve and requires Council as the reserve administering body to publicly notify its intention to do that and allow the community an opportunity to provide feedback. So the intention of this report is to seek a recommendation from the committee to Council to enable that process to commence.
Excuse me, have you got your mic on?
Yes, I do.
Or can you just move it closer, thank you, because we have people watching do want to hear, watching from afar, thank you.
Sure. Following a 1-month consultation period, we will bring any feedback back to this committee to consider and make a final decision on whether to change the classification or not. Council is delegated under the Reserves Act to make that decision.
Thank you. Seems quite clear cut. Thank you. So I'm going to open it up for questions, councillors. Excuse me. Oh, thank you. Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rob and Steph. I just had a question on when it does go out to consultation. I can understand and do support the reason of the change to the local purpose reserve. I'm looking forward to hearing the feedback, but I did wonder, when we go out to public consultation, is it only for changing the purpose of the reserve, or you have also mentioned in the report what it could be used for in future, which is potentially for, somewhere in here, but potentially for I think it was memorial or ashes to be put there as well. So would that be as part of the consultation, or is the sole focus just on the change of the reserve, and then it would go to the Ngāti Whakao Reserve Committee?
The consultation would be to take it back to its original cemetery purpose, and then actually how it developed from there would be worked through with the Gifted Reserves Committee.
Thank you. Lee?
Thank you, Rob, for your presentation this morning. The purpose of the cemetery reserve returning to that status, would you intend to turn it into a more park-like area where, with planting and beautification, it could become a thing of beauty on the way into town rather than the mess it is at the moment?
That certainly would give us the opportunity to do work on the area, yes. And again, we work through that with the Gifted Reserves Committee. But, I mean, cemetery purpose, it was originally considered potentially not suitable for traditional burials, which is why it was shifted there. But there's niche walls, there's memorial gardens, there's a whole lot of other ways that cemetery purposes can be reflected and provide a more attractive entrance to the city.
Yes, thank you.
Supplementary to that, across the road from this land is a large area that's used for commercial purposes, which is, as I understand it in the past, also regarded as cemetery reserve, and of course it has not been that and never will be used as a cemetery. Is the intention ever going to be to return it to the original gifters, being Ngāti Whakao or Hokiroa Whata, and take it out of council's hands?
We've commissioned a land tenure report, a land status report on that. The signals are that there has been Crown purchase of that land and then council purchase from the Crown. So there needs to be some further work understanding what happened further back on that. But once we clearly understand that, then we'll be able to make a decision on, okay, what is the appropriate use of it.
Thank you. There's a few councillors that would like to. Mr Berryman Kemp, then Councillor McPherson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Chair, and thank you for the report. And look, firstly, I do fully support the intent. The two questions that I've got is I'm just wondering, and it is good to see in terms of the intent to return the state of the land back to what it was gifted for, but I'm interested into whether or not there will be a apology process going through this as well, because obviously Ngāti Whakaue weren't consulted when it was changed in 1995. The irony of having to go out to consultation to change it back is not lost on me. The second thing is I wonder if my second question is, has there been consideration given in terms of the lease income that council earned during that time frame, and whether or not that should be returned to Ngāti Whakaue?
Those are good questions, and I would think that's things that we need to be worked through with the Gifted Reserves Committee. In terms of the lease income from that, it hasn't been significant, and especially over the last 4 or 5 years, but we would work with the committee on that. Yeah.
Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. Much appreciated. My question concerns the nature of demand for the development of rural gardens and additional sites for ash interments. Can you give some background with regard to demand for places in the tree trust? I know a number of people are disappointed they've not been able to gain access to that service that was available in the past, and I wondered if this is going to act as an overflow or as a way of satisfying that unsatisfied demand.
Councillors, thank you. Look, I need to ask you that when we get a report, then the questions should be relevant to what we've heard presented. Otherwise, we can stray into, have we got enough land to bury people and everything else. This is actually around the reserve. This is actually around the status and returning to what it was before and going out to public consultation. So I'd like us all, please, to confine ourselves to questions relevant to the presentation this morning. So I'm going to move on. Thank you, Councillor McPherson.
Yes, a point of order. It specifically indicates, this report, that it could be used for the development of memorial gardens and for additional sites for ash interments. Now, the demand for that is a perfectly legitimate question to ask. And there is a broader context here that does relate to what's being proposed. Could I ask you to reconsider your ruling? Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'm not going to allow that question. This is the proposal to change the classification, and that's what has been presented this morning, and that's what I'll take questions on. Councillor Yates.
Through you, Madam Chair, and I might be also in a similar line, but I wanted to firstly congratulate, and my question was around, this is what I want to understand more, because the mention that the land was unsuitable for current practices of burying tupapaku, would natural burials be considered as an extension? Is that a question I can ask?
It's the same. It's really the same. What we're discussing is, the questions you've raised and Councillor McPherson raised are relevant questions, but not for the purposes of going out to consultation to change the classification. And that's really what we're talking about. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't really have a question, but just wanted to indicate I'm happy to move this when the time comes. I haven't really got a question, but I'm happy to move this when the time comes.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Your Worship?
Oh, well, I'll be happy to second that. This is going to be well received, and it will be really interesting to see the response to community consultation, and certainly is in line with the need that we're hearing in the community. So I will second.
Thank you. And if there is, I'll take any further discussion, rather than just questions, if there's any discussions. Mr. Thomas, would you like to? No. Thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion? Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded that the committee recommends to Council that consultation be undertaken on the proposal to change the classification of part of the Rotorua Cemetery Reserve, being part Section 26A SBRS of Rotorua from recreational reserve to local purpose cemetery reserve, pursuant to Section 24 of the Reserves Act 1977. It has been moved and seconded. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, thank you, carried. Thank you. A recommendation. Now this is the proposed remit to local government, New Zealand's 2021 annual general meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please, that the report be received? Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Thank you, Mr. Wang. Councillor Wang, sorry. It's been moved and seconded. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, thank you, carried. Una, you're going to speak to this. Thank you, Una.
Good morning, committee. We'll take the report as read, but just to put into context that annually, prior to the Local Government Act, councils do look to other councils for support to bring forward discussions to the LGNZ AGM. The process for that, in order for a discussion to be made onto the agenda, is that 5 other supporting councils need to signal their support for that discussion to proceed. So what is being looked for here is support from surrounding councils that these 2 items could be put forward to LGNZ for discussion. What would happen either way, so if they do make it onto the agenda, those councillors and representatives who attend the LGNZ conference would be supplied with enough background information to be a part of the conversation that takes place. So at this stage it's purely that step to either support or not this particular council to put forward these remits to the LGNZ AGM. If there are any questions on either particular issue here, JP is here and can answer the questions around the forestry remit, and in terms of fly tipping, Stavros from the waste management activity can answer questions there. Thank you.
Thank you. And they've both been put forward by the Gisborne Local Authority. One, of course, is fly tipping and the rating valuation of forestry land. So I'm happy to take some discussion on that. And if need be, we can take them separately in terms of voting on them. But we'll have some questions perhaps at this point. So thank you. Yes, Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the remit, proposed remit on forestry, both of these remits were raised by Gisborne Council at recent Zone 2 meeting attended by Mrs Trumper and myself. Prior to attending that, I had a conversation with the CE and the CFO of Council, and I indicated, certainly from my perspective, and that short discussion I'd had, this council might find some difficulty with that forestry one, and I would speak against it here today. Gisborne has different challenges to us. We are trying not, we wouldn't, in my view, do anything to disincentivise forestry and forestry as a potential land use change in our lakes catchments. As a way of reducing the nutrient inputs into our sensitive water bodies. I think also we have a significant amount of multiple owned unproductive Maori land that we don't get any rates from. If it was brought into forestry, then we would achieve potentially better water quality outcomes, but also there would be rates coming from that. And so, again, we don't want to disincentivise forestry, in my view. I think the other thing about Gisborne is, yes, forestry may impact the eroding infrastructure, but the majority of logs from our forests either go straight to a mill close to forestry, or they go by state highway or rail to the Port of Tauranga. So there's not the same impact on local roading, is my understanding. So I, in my view, I don't think we should be supporting that particular remit.
Thank you. Councillor Donaldson, can I just ask you, at the Zone 2 meeting, when you heard about the remit, what was the feeling from most of the people at the Zone 2 meeting, if you don't mind me asking, or you might not be in a position to answer?
Yeah, thank you. So mine was the only opinion expressed. The Zone meeting decided that it would be a matter for individual councils, and they wouldn't give the mandate that was asked for to the two remits at that meeting. They had a focus on other issues that they wanted to address, and particularly the review of local government. And so it was agreed that at that meeting there would be no mandate given by the Zone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Kai Fong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd also like to support Councillor Donaldson in that I would also oppose us supporting that remit for a rating valuation change for forestry land. I think the reasons that Councillor Donaldson has put forward are relevant. Also the fact that it would be quite difficult to work out the valuation of forestry land when the trees are not harvested for 26 or 28 years, and that's what's proposed in this valuation change. And also the Gisborne remit relies on gold kiwifruit licences, which are not, I don't think, relevant here, where the licences are limited and they are very keenly sought. So it's a different situation here where anyone can grow trees if they want to. So it's almost like saying, well, if you put something of value on top of the land, let's say you put some cows on top, so what is the value of the cows? So I think it's a different situation here. The council also has the opportunity to use either a targeted or a differential rate rather than using a blanket change in valuation throughout New Zealand. So I think that if Gisborne has particular issues which are not relevant to this district, then there are other tools that could be used. From this district's perspective, economic development, we've always pushed that forestry is one of our key drivers. We have a climate change policy which is focused on forestry. We have a wood first policy, and we are also supposed to be supporting in terms of our Build Back Better recovery, the forestry sector. So I think for all of those reasons that it wouldn't be appropriate for us to support this remit.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kai Fong. Your Worship.
Great to hear the contribution, and I'm of the same view. And the other perspective that we ought to be pushing is that is a local, we ought to be looking at localism, and we say decisions should be taken closest to the communities most effective, and in this case, especially with our Wood First policy, I wouldn't be in support of this remit. And I just think that's been great feedback from everybody. Forestry is valuable to us, but Gisborne has their right to strike a different rating differential. So let them use the tool that they've got.
Thank you. Mr. Berriman-Kemp.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Look, really probably just to tautoko what I think is the feeling in the room, but just with a couple of key points. Given Māori are the largest forestry landowner, when you consider C&I holdings with 176,000 hectares, certainly if this was to go ahead, it could be seen as something of a targeted rate, which I'm sure would meet with quite a fair bit of opposition. And I was pleased to hear Councillor Kai Fong outline some of the assumptions may pertain to Gisborne. But we've got a different situation here. My understanding is most of the forestry land handed back in treaty settlement is devoid of carbon credits. So again, that's one thing that we can't factor in here. So just to tautoko what I think is the feeling in the room.
Thank you. Look, it appears that there seems to be a consensus coming through on that. Is there anybody that has a different view on the forestry land valuation? Is there anybody that has a different... Thank you, Mrs. Trump. I'm happy to hear you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I did speak to this, and I was actually, I think everybody's... I'm going to come back to how dairy farm and sheep and beef land is valued. And we have runoffs that are flat and mowable, and they are valued significantly higher than your sheep and beef. And I think that everybody should be taking a step back. This question really, or the remit, was actually allowing the legislation to apply. And we need to be thinking, how is it equitable that a sheep and beef farmer who puts his land into trees and carbon farms, or does it for another way, he's still going to get an income from year 5 onwards with carbon credits. And all Gisborne are asking is it is equitable. And I think for a dairy farmer, which is where I'm coming from today, I think that it is a fair way to value land for what it is being used for. Dairy farmers are valued higher. Sheep and beef have a separate value, and we have forest land at $3,000 a hectare, and that actually can return a significant amount of money when the trees are harvested, or whether they are carbon credits and the trees are not harvested at all. So I am speaking in support of Gisborne's remit because it's significantly higher than your sheep and beef, and I think that everybody should be taking a step back. This question really, or the remit, was actually allowing the legislation to apply. And we need to be thinking, how is it equitable that a sheep and beef farmer who puts his land in the building sector and for building regulations to be actually having something in their plans when you are building, that you are either paying a bond or a deposit for waste, and you get it returned if you have met your waste minimisation criteria.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Trumper, and thank you for giving us your view as a farmer. It's good that we get that balance because everybody sees it from their own perspective. So I'm pleased to have your views on that this morning. And I think what might be coming through is that I suspect that in fly tipping we would get the support for that remit from being proposed by Gisborne. So I am proposing that we probably take these two separately, that fly tipping is separate, and I'll put the rating valuation of forestry land as a separate motion as well. But I will take Councillor Tapsell, and you had a, did you, sorry, it was Councillor Maxwell. I beg your pardon.
But I would take the opportunity.
Well, actually, yes, if you like.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to provide support for the fly tipping remit, and the reason being is it will allow councils to have that discretion where we can apply a buy local for local approach. And we know that not only in Rotorua, but in every single council across the country, we have issues with fly tipping. And as the costs, the waste levy costs come in, it'll be increased for people to dispose of their waste. And I am concerned that this may also increase the amounts of fly tipping that we have. But this will allow us to not only provide a fine, but then be able to follow up on costs of prosecuting, because that's the biggest issue that we have, is we can provide a fine, but the cost in enforcing that is too expensive, and of course that comes from ratepayers' money. So I totally support the cost of fly tipping and us prosecuting them, going back to those who are doing that, because we need to make a stance that that sort of behaviour is not acceptable. We need to protect our environment, and we need to be good role models for our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tapsell. Councillor Maxwell, I think you'll be the last one to speak. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. An excellent debate. I'm pleased that we'll separate the motions because I support the first one. But the second one, I think some excellent views have been put forward for and against. But for me, you touched on people think about how it'll affect them. Well, I am aware that our own tribe, Ngāti Rangiwewe, are involved in 3 or more forestry blocks, and the leases, or not the leases, the years go out to 25 plus years. So I am supporting the motion that was put forward by Deputy Mayor Dave Donaldson. Thank you.
Yes, we don't have a motion just yet. I'm going to put them separately, but that's Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as others have indicated, I strongly support the fly tipping proposal. The second one, I'm quite ambivalent about. I understand the arguments that have been put forward and partly support them, but the perspective I take is in terms of the forestry farmers themselves. Their cash flows vary over the course of the growth of a forest until clear felling occurs. And so this proposal is just not subtle enough for me. So for that reason, I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it's the proposal is that I'm just talking about the forestry valuation of the forestry land. The proposal is that it be supported to go to local government, to the general AGM, and there, of course, it could be discussed by all councillors, so that as councils we are aware of the things that are going on and are important at other councils. So we've heard some very good discussion on that this morning, and it's a pity that those comments and those views couldn't have been brought up at the local government conference in July. So, however, I am going to put the two motions, the fly tipping and the rating valuation of forestry land, separately. I think that's important. So have we got the first one up there, or move that? Thank you, Councillor Tappel. It'll be moved by Councillor Tappel. Thank you. Seconded by Mrs. Trumper. And now, is that for both, no, it won't be for both. It'll be for just the one. There we go. So any discussion further on that before I... Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the committee recommends to Council that the proposed remit fly tipping be supported at the Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting on the 17th of July 2021. I'll put that motion, moved by Councillor Tapsell, seconded by Mrs. Trumper. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, thank you, carried. The second one up there, that the committee recommends to Council that the proposed remit rating valuation of forestry land be supported at the Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting on 17th of July 2021. It's been, sorry, there's some discussion on that one, yes?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to move that if we put the word not in front of B.
Now, just a moment, that's not what...
Do I have to move it as an amendment, or can I move it with the word not?
So can I just suggest that it's moved and seconded, and if it's lost, then another motion can be put?
All right, just a moment. I just better get that clear.
So just to clarify, if there is no support for this and a mover, this is the recommendation that has come forward from staff on behalf of Gisborne for a remit. If it is not supported, there therefore would be no mover, no seconder, but we cannot have a motion put to be a direct negative of what is on the table. If, however, we get a mover and a seconder and it is lost, then we can have discussion on what a further recommendation may say going forward.
I'll move that the recommendation. I'll move.
You're going to move that recommendation, yep. Mrs. Trumper? And that is as it's there, correct? As put up on there. Thank you. So do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor McPherson. So, councillors and committee members, it's been moved and seconded, moved by Mrs. Trumper, seconded by Councillor McPherson, that the committee recommends to Council that the proposed remit rating valuation of forestry land be supported at the Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting on the 17th of July 2021. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? No. Thank you. Thank you.
It's lost.
If you want a division board? All right. Show of hands, please. Show of hands. So I'll read it out again, that the committee recommends to Council that the proposed remit rating valuation of forestry land be supported at the Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting on the 17th of July 2021. All those in favour, please raise their hands. There were 4. So, thank you. And contrary, we'll go through the whole exercise. Contrary, please raise your hand.
Point of order. I noticed our seconder didn't vote for it. I think, is that feasible, that you can second something and not vote for it?
No, he's not obliged to.
I'll just confirm that. Yes, Councillor McPherson is correct. He's not obliged to vote. All he did was get the motion onto the table for discussion.
Thank you. We've noted all of those. Thank you very much. So, thank you. So that motion is lost. Thank you. Now, thank you, Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So can I move the same wording with the word not in front of B? So that the committee recommends to Council the proposed remit rating valuation of forestry land not be supported at the local government New Zealand annual general meeting on the 17th of July 2021.
You can insert that and it just becomes another separate motion altogether. A different motion, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to have to read that again too. Not be supported. Sorry, I'm just going to make sure it's not there we go.
Round the wrong way. Round the wrong way. Not be.
Not be. That's it.
Not. I'll indicate I'd second that, Madam Chair.
Supported. At the proposed Roman meeting. Should we put will not be supported or just not supported? Doesn't sound quite. Thank you. Right, so we have a new motion up there. It's been moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Kai Fong, that the committee recommends to Council that the proposed remit rating valuation of forestry land not be supported at the Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting on the 17th of July 2021. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Before you do put it to the motion, can there just be a little bit of discussion?
Absolutely, certainly. I thought we'd had enough, but however,
I would just like to add, Madam Chair, that Councillor Donaldson said that most of our logs use state highways. Can I just remind him that those trees actually come from forestry blocks off our rural roads, and a significant portion of those rural roads are metal roads, and the maintenance of those rural roads are not up to scratch because you only have to be a resident on those roads, and the number of complaints that we receive. And so I'm just reminding that councillors need to be aware that yes, the trucks do go to the port, but they also have to get there onto those state highways through our local roads, which are predominantly metal roads.
Thank you very much for that reminder, Mrs. Trumper. Thank you. Now, Councillor Donaldson, I see you hovering over your button there. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And look, I acknowledge the comments of Mrs. Trumper, but I'm also aware that the forest industry have a huge, significant network of internal roads themselves. They provide a lot of jobs, and I've spent enough time on search and rescue exercises, etc., in the Kaingaroa Forest to see the amount of roading infrastructure they have to the railhead at Murupara and the $1 Million Highway, as it's called, down to Kawerau. So, it's a hugely important industry to us, and I'll be supporting the revised motion.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to be allowing any further discussion. We've had sufficient discussion on that this morning, and some very good views have been put. And as I said, everybody tends to look at it from their own perspective. But it is good to get that balance, and I want to thank you, Mrs. Trumper, for ensuring that your voice as a rural constituent is actually heard around this table. So thank you for that. It has been moved and seconded. I am going to put that motion. Here I go again. That the committee recommends to Council that the proposed remit rating valuation of forestry land not be supported at the Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting on the 17th of July 2021. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Thank you. Carried. Yes, vote recorded. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Trumper. Right, recommendation, this is on page 26. Hearing on the speed limit review, 2021. No, we put the fly tipping one before. Yes, thank you. Wakey, wakey. Sorry, Councillor Kumar, that was a bit naughty of me. So here we go. That the report having a hearing on speed limit review 2021 be received. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Mrs. Trumper. And thank you, Councillor Yates. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you, carried. Thank you. Now we have, who's going to overview this? I think it's Stavros and Nikki. Or do we flip a coin? I think you're just going to introduce. Oh. Thank you. Are you talking to the process or, sorry, overview?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just, this is for the purpose of hearing submissions in as to that proposed speed limit reviews, and we invite the committee to listen to the submitters. Of course, the feedback received from the submissions will help finalize our report to SPNF and the Council next month in terms of making final recommendations for the speed changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're on to page 61. Thank you. And I'm not sure who is here, so... Oh, you've got an order.
Yep.
Thank you. Councillors, we're on to page 61. And we do have a schedule, and I suspect that I do hope that most of the submitters have come along this morning, and if you are submitting this morning, welcome to you all. Welcome to our Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting this morning. And our first submitter this morning is Michelle Marino. If Michelle is here, kia ora kōrua, good morning, and please come along and take a seat. And we have received the submissions. So you've got 5 minutes, and so if you just like, it's entirely up to you if you want to speak to your submission or pull out the relevant points that you want to speak to, or you can use your 5 minutes as you wish. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. I've just written a letter that I'd like to read. I've got, to whom it may concern, with the support of our school and local community, we'd like to make a submission to alter the 2021 local speed limit changes. Currently, Kaharoa School is in the 70 km per hour zone. The 2021 proposed change is to drop the speed to 60. We'd like to change to match Waikiri, Whakaitu and Broadland schools who are changing to a 40 kph variable zone. The hours we would like this to be in place are 8 a.m. till 3:30, as this encompasses the first and last bus arrival of the day. Kaharoa School is on a busy, windy rural road placed at the top of a rise coming from both directions. Our school sees plenty of heavy traffic around before and after school times. Our road is a no exit, but every vehicle that goes past our school will also make a return trip. We have children entering and exiting buses that turn around between their pick-up and drop-off runs. Before, during and after school, we have parents who use the roadside to park while they are collecting and dropping off their children. We also have some children who walk to our community hall for pick-up, and we have some local children who actually walk home. I personally live 500 metres from the school and cannot walk my children to school, which I would dearly love to do. We have spoken to staff, the Board of Trustees, who's listening today, our PTA and parents, and our surrounding community, and we've got 80 signatures from within our community supporting this within the last 2 days, because obviously it takes time to get these things out. And we'd also like to ask for an extension of the zone so that it encompasses more area, because we feel the signs are quite close to the school driveway, so that where the sign actually is, there's not enough space for people to slow down. So I think it's an extension of maybe 50 or 100 metres either side, and that would just ensure people are driving at the correct speed to come past the school. So with me I have got a map which I've marked where I'd like the signs to go. I've got a letter from our Community Association, the Principal, the Board of Trustees Chair, our PTA Chair as well. So can I just give these to someone?
So, happy to receive those. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And would the principal like to add anything? Or you're quite...
Hi, I'm Sarah Patterson. I represent the Board of Trustees. So I'm just here to support Michelle. It's a really important cause for our little community school, for our children to be safe on quite a busy rural road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I think that's... sorry, Councillor Donaldson. Thank you. I am aware of the time, so thank you. Did you have something, Councillor Donaldson?
Just a question, if I may, Madam Chair, through you. Thank you for coming to talk to us today. Is the Kaharoa School open to public use and community use outside of school hours?
Yes, we've got a pool that the community hire keys for. We've got tennis courts as a tennis club user, and last year we put in a sand volleyball court as well, which was designed for community use. So regularly the school is visited outside school hours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your presentation this morning.
Can I just ask?
Oh, yes. Thank you,
Sorry,
Mr.
I just have one quick question. The community association, so because they represent the residents out there, how much support have they given you for this reduction in speed?
We've got the local chair has given us a letter. They expressed some concern about the speed being a 24-hour blanket speed limit. So once we clarified that we wanted something that encompassed just school hours, they were very happy, and all of them have had children or grandchildren at the school.
So just one further. So clarification, the 40k variable is just between your busy hours 8 and 9, and okay,
yes.
So you are aware it's just...
Yeah, so the first bus arrives on schools, like to drop children off at about 8:05, and the last one leaves at 3:30.
So the 40k is not the whole time, that's not the whole day.
Yes, it's the whole day. We want the whole day, because we do school, the buses come and go.
Okay, so just to clarify, the 40k variable only applies at the peak morning and peak afternoon. It does not apply all day.
No, it does all day. So we've asked from 8 when the first bus arrives till 3:30 when the bus leaves, because we've got buses that come back and forward and community events where there's lots of parents on site, because we've got really good parent support for events, so it does get quite busy.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us and to your submission this morning. Thank you very much. Mr. Gordon Crichton. Thank you for attending this morning, Mr. Crichton.
Just like to say thank you for having me here. To councillors, Madam Chair, thanks very much. I've come to talk about, I live at 2 Forest Place at Tarawera Road, right on the corner there, and I've come to talk about seeing if we can get the road speed there reduced down to 50 k's. From the bottom of the roundabout, which you're doing a lot of work on now, up to past our place, and then further around up the bend, further up on the hill, where you've got new residential area. The reason being is because of the excessive speed on the road. I've had several meetings with the Daryl Robertson and George, I think it's George, I've forgotten his name anyway. But anyway, in our particular house, we have vibrations coming from trucks from the quarry, logging trucks, and plus cattle trucks. And as I said, inside our house, we've had it replastered twice now and repainted because of the vibrations coming from the road. If my wife sits on the toilet or we go to bed, the house vibrates when heavy traffic goes through there. But it's not only that. In the early hours of the morning, you've got young people going up there, going out to the lake, speeding, and then and on the way out and on the way back, plus trucks speeding at the same time. I've never seen any law enforcement or what you call camera vehicles there for the last 2 years. People use their forest across the other side, and a lot of elderly people go across for a stroll in the forest. Young people on bikes. And to me, it's actually very dangerous, and it's a safety hazard. And you better to have prevention is better than cure. Definitely, I mean, it's all right for me speaking here, and you people living in different places around Rotorua, I respect that, but you are not the one living there. I've been around to the local neighbourhood talking to people, and willing to put a petition, and we need to have something brought forward so that the speed is reduced, and signs, or even, I don't care what you put there, judder bars or whatever you put there, you do have to slow the traffic down. What's the sense of having, 50 into 70, hit 70 and then go to 80k where the new residential area is going to be, and that's a dangerous corner. So what's the point? Why not just have the one speed? So that's all I have to say, but I am getting really brass off about it because my wife is starting to get anxiety about that because the house is vibrating. I've had people from the council come into the house to actually experience it themselves. So that's all I've got to say, and I just hope that you see common sense and bring the speed down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crichton. Can you tell me exactly again where your home is?
It's on the corner of Forest Place and Tarawera Road. So Forest Place is about the third road up there on the left-hand, past Highlands.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions, councillors? No. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Matthew and is it Amanda as well? Both. Thank you. Kia ora kōrua, welcome this morning. Morning, Amanda.
Morena. Ko Amanda Takawingoa. I represent the concerned residents of Rerewhikaitu, Waimangu and Kaingaroa for over 30 years have had concerns of the speed in which vehicles are able to travel through the Rerewhikaitu village. Those that have been before me have tried to instigate change for the speed to no avail, and it has been my focus for the last 2 years. I could reflect on the statistics that both our students from our school have collected have collected in regards to the speed. But there has been academic survey Ds, and I am sure that their results are something that you will hold more weight with. What I can tell you is that public view, and these views are through a vast experience of watching the village traffic, is that the chance of risk is too high for our children and at times our elderly who are crossing our road. Charlie Shute is 5. He has an older brother, Ryan, who is 7, and a younger brother, Johnny. And there is a 3-week-old Jack. Charlie loves his rugby, he loves his family, but currently he loves Jack the most. Charlie is tough and he pig hunts with his pop and he can reel in his own fish. When he talks about things that he is passionate about, his bright blue eyes sparkle in a way that melts your heart. Charlie makes the best decisions that he can about his life, but as I said, he is 5, and there is a lot that can distract him and curb his attention from what is most pressing. He is one of about 70 of the kids that attend Lake Rerewhikaitu School, and each of those are fundamental to their families and our future. Liam is 4. He's about to start big school next term, and in the meantime, he is the chief of play at Play Centre, which is across the road from our school. Liam is desperate to crack the big time and be able to join the others that he's seen to move on to school. Most rural people understand that local relationships are the core success in rural locations. Rerewhikaitu School recognises this and has built a strong link with the Play Centre, meaning that the kids are crossing to each location regularly. Liam has always attended outside the gates of Play Centre, but there could be a time that his mum is tending to his little brother Liam and his zippy legs make a very poor decision. This is the reality of our situation. Our kids are not a number that sits beside the name of our school or play centre. Our kids are individuals who matter, just as the kids are from other schools who have had their speed lowered to 40 and at times 30 past their gate. We are wanting those who are travelling to take an extra 1, maybe 2 minutes in their day to ensure that our tamariki have the best chance at keeping safe. I have yet to find a person who will say that they do not have enough time in their day to support this change. We have support from our community, our local businesses and other businesses who are road users, our local MP and many from our nation. We have every reason to have the speed lowered to 50k through our village and 40 past our school. And I truly believe that there is no logical reason for it to stay as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions for Amanda at present. Yes, thank you, Mr. Trump. Oh, sorry, yes. Beg your pardon.
We know who you mean.
Mr. Thompson. Hearing you up.
Something happened while... look, thank you for your submission. I noticed in the submissions we've had, there's a lot of support for lowering the speed limit out there. There has been some opposition from people, but mainly that is because they wanted a lower speed limit. So I just wondered your thoughts around that. Obviously the proposal is for the current proposal. Are you happy with that, but would also like to see a lower limit? Or, just interested in your opinion around that, because reading the opposition to the proposal from people, I'm actually suspecting a lot of them support a lower limit.
I do believe that statistically it is proven that the lower you go, the less the risk. And I mean, that's a no-brainer for anybody to work that out. I also have seen, though, that there are schools that are not being considered for that 40k past their school. I don't understand what are you weighing up there? That the child that attends that school is more capable of making better choices than the child that attends the school that has been granted that 40k or that 30k. I don't see how you can differentiate between the children, because you're talking about children. You're not talking about, kids that have been taught more or less or from a different country. You're talking about all the children that are all attending our same schools, going through the same curriculum. In theory, will have the same kind of ballpark ideas around what's okay. So no, I don't believe that it should be different. I believe that it should be 40k's past all of our schools. I do understand that some are at a higher risk, like for instance the one on Sala Street where you've got that tight corner. 30 there is probably far safer. I don't believe that when the AA said that there was a high risk of causing more accidents because of that drop. It's ridiculous. We stopped for potentially just an orange road cone from 100 down to 30 because the road workers may or may not be there, and that's perfectly acceptable nationwide. Yet we cannot have a warning sign saying you're coming into a school zone that is going to drop down to this speed, giving people warning and the opportunity to make better decisions. If they can't make that better decision, why are they driving, and how safe are our children?
I'll take one quick question, and then, because the time is just about up. Thank you, Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. My question regarding Ruawhakaari School is that do you not at times utilise the school, or the community hall, which is across the road from the school, which means that classrooms of kids are actually crossing the road at any given time?
That is correct. So for last term and the final term of last year, so term 4, we had 2 classes crossing 6 times a day, and they wore high-vis. We had cones out. Some drivers would stop and let them cross, and that's both trucking and vehicles, but not all, and they had to cross 6 times a day. So that was 6 times a day, 5 times a week for 2 terms. So that's approximately 21 weeks. The risk was high.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Armour. I'll move it straight on to you, Mr. Armour. Matthew, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. My name's Matthew Armour, but for everybody who knows me, I'm Norm. I've come here this morning to add my 10 cents worth in relation to the long-standing issue of speed limits around schools. and especially around rural schools. A maximum of 40k to me is a no-brainer. Vehicles have got bigger, faster and technologically more advanced over the years, but at the end of the day it is generally still a person who has hopefully got a licence in control of that machine. These people make mistakes. Kids make mistakes too. We can teach them everything we know, but they will still make mistakes. I haven't seen a device to put on a 5-year-old to stop them popping out on the road from behind a parked car, although both of my brothers had a harness and lead when they were younger. Perhaps old school fixes are the future, although I'm sure in this day and age, tethering kids like animals will be frowned upon by parts of society, no matter how high its safety value is. The best safety device for people around schools, whether it's Koro in his walking frame going to watch kapahaka, or little Johnny heading to his first day of school, is the speed at which vehicles travel around it. Let's make it lower. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wang, you did have a question before, so we've got some time on Matthew's slot, so if you'd like to put your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Amanda and Matthew, for coming to present, and I really appreciate the visit that we had out today there for Kaito to talk to the community there. The question that I had probably relates to both of you, mainly Amanda, but what support, could you please explain the support that you've had from the trucking companies?
The support that we've had from the trucking companies has been, I could almost say 100%, I'd say maybe 99.9% in our favour. I had one trucking company that I approached and they said that they would prefer to come and look for themselves. They came and looked and then they gave us their 100% support. So we've had absolutely no person that has been approached to ask if they're in favour say that they are not.
Thank you. Any further questions? No. Well, thank you so much for coming along this morning. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Helen Craig? Thank you. Good morning, Helen.
Tēnā koutou. Ko Helen Craig, ko Kawinua, ko Paul Emerson, Takutāne, Tokorua nā Tamariki. Thank you for hearing me this morning. I'm here to represent my family in support of the proposal to lower the speed limit on Tarawera Road. We live in Linmore and often cross the road to the forest. So thank you to the council for pursuing this. It's something that we really support. And it's these kind of changes that, as you've heard, make Rotorua a much safer and happier place for children and for families. So we fully support it. We'd like the council to go slightly further, and you've heard a little bit about this morning. There's no enforcement of the speed limit at the moment, it appears. So that's, if we're going to change the speed limit, enforcing it is critical. So some measures to make sure that speed limit is enforced is really important. There's so many people that cross there, children, families, with bikes and things, trailers. It's extremely dangerous at the moment. And the second thing we'd like to request is that council install a safer crossing from Linmore, sort of Ulwhata Linmore, because everyone's passing through there to get to the forest across Tarawera Road. At the moment, there's sort of a crossing at Moana Terrace, at the end of Moana Terrace, but it's really, really not safe. So you sort of get halfway and you're stuck in the middle with, two kids and bikes, and you're thinking, can I make it the rest of the way? So, we just really like council to consider a safer crossing for that residential area, particularly with the cycleway going to be coming through from Ulwhata and the population increasing. It's quite critical. And these kind of things just make Rotorua a much better place to live, and it's safer for our families. And so fully support it and would request going a little bit further. Thank you. Kia ora.
Thank you. Any questions for Helen? No. Thank you very much, Helen, for coming along. Thank you. So are there any submitters here that we haven't got down on our schedule? No. So thank you very much. Thank you. It has been... you moved, Councillor, Mrs. Trumper. Were you wanting to make some further comments? Thank you. I'm happy to take further comments from councillors on what we've heard and the submissions. Thank you. Yes.
Can I speak last, please?
Yes. Well, we have. Well, it is just a hearing, so there is no discussion, so we can open it up for discussion, and we can all, if anyone wants to speak, but you'd like to speak last?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So just open it up for any discussion on the... Thank you. Yes, Mr. Berryman-Kent.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question, but it wasn't really related to the submissions that were submitted thus far. I was given the impression there were a couple of other submissions that were sent in, but they were not to roads directly involved in this. So they were feeder roads that were going into it. So I'm just double checking. What's the scope of this? Is it only for specified roads, or is it for a general submissions on road safety?
Yeah. Actually, it's quite specific, the roads, but I'll ask... Thank you.
So just to clarify the process, this is a step in the whole process of looking at the speed limit review bylaw. So you will recall that this went out for consultation. This is the phase where people who have submitted have chosen to take up an opportunity to come and present to you. The team then need to take into consideration all of the feedback they have received and will be presenting back to you at a later date a decision-making report for which you then deliberate on and cast a decision on. So this is only the hearings component of this whole process today. So hopefully that clarifies that question there, Mr. Camp. So issues like that are considered in the overall feedback. And there will be comments on that, but in this one it was specifically roads that were listed out on the original schedule that are up for consideration.
Thank you. And as we see, over 100 submissions were received, and of course the majority of those, not surprisingly, were actually around the school zones, the speed limit in the school zone. And, that's not surprising. So, yes, sorry, you had another comment?
Yes. Sorry, I did have two more questions, but I asked both of them now. I'm interested in Council's ability to enforce and also ability to influence road design. Now, based on some of the submissions, we've heard desire for there to be enforcement of speed limits on Tarawera Road, but I'm unsure as to whether that's a Wakakotahi decision, a police decision, a council decision. So I'd just like some clarification as to who makes that call. The second question is, I heard the impassioned desire to reduce the speed going up the hill on Tarawera Road, but I'm interested that if that speed limit is reduced, there may need to be the potential to double lane that road, because obviously there's trucks going out there and that will slow traffic considerably. And again, I don't know if it's Council's ability to do that. So some clarification on those.
Those are all very good points, but that's not what we're here today to talk about. It's about the submissions. And Council doesn't enforce any speed limits, of course. Actually, perhaps I might ask Stavros. Stavros, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're quite right. Council has no statutory authority to enforce motor vehicle speed regulations. We are simply authorized to propose and initiate speed limits regulations. But of course, we're working closely with the police, and where we identify issues where the police needs to pay attention, we generally get a good cooperation with the police. Second element of the question is that whether roads require physical reconfiguration. Of course, we welcome to receive that, but of course, on balance, we have to, as collectively, have to decide whether the council is able to achieve all the improvements that the committee may wish to do. But certainly, we can incorporate all these requests into our future infrastructure strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. And there is a difference too between our roads, council roads, and then Yes, state highway. So that's another difference as well, which I'm sure you're aware of. Thank you. Who else did I? Thank you, Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you. And just to reiterate on Stavros's comments, we have, as an example, with the Hamurana community, when we lowered their speed limit and there was call to action from the community to help enforce it, the council, as he mentioned, worked alongside the police and encouraged them to have a high presence out there, which we got feedback that they did. What I wanted to say, thank you, Madam Chair, is I think the overwhelming response and submissions is a true reflection of just how seriously our community is taking the safety of our families, and in particular our students around the schools. And I hope that Mrs Trumper acknowledges the work she has done, because at the New Zealand Community Board she was actually shared with the entire community boards across New Zealand the great work that we have done here in Rotorua around safety of our rural schools, and of course the students that led that change. The question that I did have is, we have had a lot of feedback today, not only about the speed review, but about that additional work that council can do around safety by design, which is around changing signs, or of course implementing new crossings, which I think could be a great idea in some of these areas. So when we do get back the staff report on this, will we also be able to get an update or some sort of indication on how that feedback can then be put into our strategy, like our infrastructure strategy? I'm aware there are sometimes a long waiting list for some of these things, but I think the urgency for it to be changed alongside some of the speed reviews could be looked at. So is that able to come through as an update, as well as just the speed limit changes, which is what we are focusing on?
Thank you very much, Councillor Tapsell, and it really does follow on with what Mr Merriman Kemp was talking about, but it does seem the design and possible implementation tends to be a long, drawn-out process. Excuse me, if you remember some of the other speed, when we've looked at other speeds and trying to get them reduced and the better design over the years, and it seems to be such a long, drawn-out. And I don't know, perhaps I will ask Stavros if you, around that, the design or any improvement in design, etc. That seems to be do we actually just have to work in or wait for others to give us a steer on that?
Madam Chair, with regards to our own roads, obviously, we are in control of those roads. The limitations there, of course, is that where do you have enough funding to spend into what area and what kind of priority you may wish to allocate. Where you have state highways, obviously we're close with NZTA, and we are subject to their priority levels. So I think there's nothing technically limiting. The question is that what's the funding priority allocations made by our own decisions and by NZTA.
Councillor Bentley, Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, it's probably a question for Stavros as well. I noticed in the advice from NZTA that they, towards the end, disagree with a particular proposal, 40 kilometres per hour, for two reasons. And one of them is 60 kilometres per hour is government policy for rural schools. What's going on here? We seem to have two kind of standards, and I wondered, is it a jurisdictional question? Do they determine this outcome, or can we?
Yeah, actually, it's a good question, because we did have this debate some time ago, you might recall. So I'll get Stavros to comment on that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The broad outline of these jurisdictions, that NZTA, of course, got jurisdiction on state highway roads. We do not have an influence other than the recommendation for what kind of speed limits should be imposed or regulated for state highways. With regards to local roads, it is our decision. NZTA are a stakeholder, an important stakeholder, and I express their views, but they cannot actually prevent us from imposing a speed limit, subject to, of course, being consistent with some national standards. So it is our decision where it's a local network. You need to be aware, though, that at the national level there is an increasing movement at the moment to take away speed regulations away from local authorities and towards either a regional or a national authority, and that is in progress at the moment.
Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Trump. I'll, if you'd just like to wrap up.
Just very briefly, thank you,
fine.
Madam Chair. Following on from what Stavros was talking about before, and not only was there one from Wakakotai, the other submission from AA actually queried why we hadn't investigated the review across Whirinaki Valley Road at the Ngākuru School, and they have equally the same number of traffic going past on a daily basis. Probably not the same heavy vehicle that Rera Whakaitu has, but they definitely have the same number of traffic per day. The one thing that I'd like to say about the submissions from Rera Whakaitu is that they have come from every generation, including the school children that have submitted. It was quite heartening to see the number of children that have actually put in their submissions about how frightened they are when they cross the road. And when we were out there filming, I can tell you those trucks coming from Ashpit Road into the school area, when they saw the children, then they had to hit the brakes because they were not going slow coming around that corner. And it was very opportune when we were out there and we actually had a truck and trailer go past. Was not organised, it just happened. And so it is essential that we look at all our schools and the volume of traffic going past. Broadland School, for example, in 12 months, the traffic per day has increased by 150 vehicles per day. So, and that is another school that the children have to cross the road to actually get to the hall. And so we have 3 schools that involve children on the road, on very busy roads. So I would like to encourage councillors to really look at our rural schools and the reviews and take note of some of the submission comments and really support our drive to actually reduce the speed at peak time to 40k if we can, and that includes kaharoa. So if I can just sort of say, I'd like to,
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, look, thank you very much, councillors. We were just hearing the submitters today. Apart from all of the other 100 or so, 90 or so submissions that we've had, staff will come back to us and then we'll have an opportunity again to have a look at what we've heard and obviously any suggested changes, and that will be up for debate then. So thank you very much for that session this morning. Now we can go into public, excluded, but we do only have our we only have the minutes to confirm, so I don't think there's any need really to go into public. I'll just have to get a mover and a seconder that the confidential minutes of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting held on the 15th of April 2021 be confirmed as a true and correct record. Thank you, Mrs. Trumper. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. And any changes, amendments? Carl, thank you. Well, I'll put that motion that the minutes are a true and correct, be confirmed as true and correct. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, thank you. Thank you. So I declare our meeting closed for today. Thank you very much, councillors, committee members. Thank you.